Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. This time we're going to be going over the cards, or at least most of the cards that get around barrier in the Dragon Ball Super card game. So ever since the keyword was kind of released and put out into the game, people have been kind of concerned over it, and I think it's for very good reason. A card that you cannot interact with realistically, a card that you cannot potentially KO with a effect, especially if it has a powerful effect itself that perhaps is like floodgatey, that makes you continuously do something that negs you, or a card that provides your opponent crazy amounts of value, and a card you can't interact with is pretty troublesome. And those are a lot of cards with barrier in the game. You think about like Anti-Laza, Kami's Power Piccolo, the King Vegeta Great Ape. You think about all those cards, and they just provide your opponent incredible value, and you really can't interact with them unless they put it in rest mode so you can attack it. Otherwise, if they leave it in active mode, there are very few things you can do to interact with it. I'd say very few, but there actually is a big list here that we're going to go over. So we're going to go over all these different cards that can help you get around barrier. We'll do it in a somewhat timely fashion, but I want to let you guys know about it. Before we get into this video, if you guys haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button. Definitely give this video a like. If you end up liking it towards the end, that would be super dope. We're going to be running a ginormous giveaway for set 5 once I get back from nationals. There's going to be a box set 5. It's going to be playmats, packs, all different prizes. More prizes go out the more subscribers we get by the time I get back from Nats, guys. Definitely hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much. We'll get into this video. Alright, so in the leader slot, you'll see the Yamcha leader, the new Yamcha leader coming out of set 5. He is going to be one of the leaders that I like to get around barrier. So I have a Yamcha list that I built. It'll be up on the channel relatively soon, but we'll go over what he does for now and why he is a card that gets around barrier. So on the unawakened side, he bursts 2 to draw a card when he swings. Awaken a 4 life, untap 2 energy. Now he gets the important part. So Yamcha has an ability to let you choose 1 red battle card during your turn, and that battle card can attack active battle modes. There's going to be a lot of cards here that have the ability to attack active battle modes, and those are a key piece in being able to get around barrier. It's really good at getting around barrier because it's almost like a pseudo form of being able to spot remove a barrier card. You're allowed to attack it when your opponent's just letting it sit in active mode. So those Anti-Lazas, those Kami Powers Piccolos, those 5-drop King Vegeta Apes, you're allowed to somewhat interact with them by attacking active battle mode cards. So I really like this leader for that reason. Another honorable mention I do want to get to is actually the movie Gogeta. His ability to skill drain the entire board can remove the effect of barrier. So that allows you to, for example, use his effect, negate all your opponent's skills on the board, including any skills that have barrier. Then when you drop your 5-drop Gogeta, because you're restricted to using Union Fusion for the duration of the turn after you use the leader's ability, you can actually remove 2 barrier threats, which is huge. So if we ever get into a format that barrier just starts to overwhelm everything, I actually believe that the movie leader and that the Yamcha leader will be very, very good in those formats because they'll be able to actually deal with those boards. But with those 2 leaders out of the way, now we'll get into the main deck cards you can play to get around barrier. So Kami Global Unifier, new card coming out of set 5. Deflect, draw a card when you play it, activate main. If your opponent has 4 more battle cards in play, choose all of your opponents and your battle cards with energy cost 4 or less, ignoring barrier. There's the key part right there, ignoring barrier. Key thing to know is that you will lose your own board as well, so don't overcommit to your own board if you're trying to Kami your opponent. Punish them, not yourself. Heavenly Wizard Demigra, this is a card that people kind of talked about when the set was first released, but it kind of fell out of flavor because it is somewhat easily played around, but it is kind of big in certain instances. During your turn, when you combo this card, if your opponent has 3 or less energy, shoot it to one of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier with 30,000 power or less, and KO it. So this can KO a 7-drop Cell for 1 energy, for no energy, sorry. It can KO a Buhan dropped on turn 3 if that ever got out of hand. So this is kind of an answer to really big bombs dropped early, which is cool. I like how in this game they've printed kind of preemptive answers to certain things. Like if this ever became a problem, this would be an answer. If that ever became a problem, that would be an answer. I think that's pretty cool. Encroaching Threat Mass Saiyan. This card can attack battle cards in active mode. Key thing, this is splashable in any deck because it's black. It does not have any specified cost. So this is a splashable attack active battle modes in any deck. And if you have 7 or more cards in your warp, this becomes a 3-drop 20k. Pretty big. Next up, we have the Burst Energy Super Saiyan Bardock, a very similar card. Overwhelm 4, 1 energy. When you play this card using Overwhelm, it gains 10k power for the duration of the turn and can attack battle cards in active mode. So almost like an overwhelming Jiren, but kind of interesting that it still gets a 30k power bump even if you don't swing an active battle card. That's somewhat unlike Jiren. He still gets that kind of active battle card ability. Then we have Dark Control Demon God Demigra. Now this doesn't inherently deal with barrier cards, but I wanted to include this card because this is actually a really good card at the moment for dealing with something like awe-inspiring Vegito. So what this does is it's a 4-drop 20k. So if your deck can't play Vegito, or if your deck doesn't want to play Vegito, if you don't want to play it, and you want to play somewhat of an answer to Vegito, because there are only a selective amount in the game, you can play this card. And what it does is it's a 4-drop 20k, so it matches Vegito in power. You swing at a Vegito, your opponent is forced to banish a card from their hand, and if it's a battle card, you get to combo with it. So you swing at a Vegito, your opponent inherently negs 1, so that's really good right off the bat. And then they either negate the swing, so they neg another one, they let the Vegito die, so you answered the problem of Vegito, or they have to combo out of it. Meaning if they gave you a battle card, this can be a 25 to 30k swinger on top of any other combos you might put into it, and they have to neg even harder to save their Vegito. So really interesting card I like for dealing kind of specifically with Vegito, but also any other barrier cards in rest mode. SS3 Bardock Power Unleashed. It's a board wipe when you have a black leader and you evolve this over a Bardock, and it does not choose, so it can clear the entire board. Force Absorption Demigra, so if your leader basically is Demigra, you can play this card, and when this card attacks and you have 15 or more black cards in your warp, you can wipe your opponent's whole board again, ignoring barrier. I wish they would have just moved forward, not saying the word choose in general, instead of having to add this clause that says ignore barrier. If they would have just went the SS3 Bardock route, things would have been a whole lot simpler. They could have just included or not included the word choose, and I think that would have made things a lot simpler, but they didn't decide to do that. But this is another option for that. Creative Shark Yajirobe can deal with any barrier cards that are going to be swinging, and you see right underneath him the Iron Hammer of Justice Android 16. Revenge blockers, revenge cards in general, really good at dealing with barrier cards. I really hope they print more revenge cards in the future relatively soon, because they're so good at dealing with barrier cards. Like if you have a Yajirobe on the board that your opponent can't deal with, they can't swing them with their Vegito, otherwise it's going to get destroyed. So a really good way to actually be able to KO barrier cards. Mafuba is really good, and a lot of people say like, oh, it just kind of deals with the problem not permanently, but dealing with the problem for 2 whole turns is really big, especially when most of the times you activate Mafuba and resolve it. Those next 2 turns are going to be the crucial swing turns of the game. So if you Mafuba something like a Vegito, something like a Anilaza your opponent swung with, you've dealt with a problem, it doesn't get its lingering effect, and you just deal with it that way, and it's really good. You can probably close out the game by the time Mafuba runs out. Ultra Instinct Saiyan Son Goku. This is another board wipe, except all the cards go back to your opponent's hand. Does not choose once again, really good. So we have Zeno the Playing God, and later on Litho C Chain Attack, which I'll kind of skim over once we get there. But Zeno the Playing God combo with Chain Attack Trunks basically answers barrier and just about anything else. So this combo basically resets the entire board and hand. It does not choose, so barriers go away. Pretty good for dealing with a board full of barriers. This was really popular when Mecha Apes or apes in general were really big. It just deals with an entire board full of barrier apes. Although with all these other answers we do have currently, I think that the Degenerate Chain Zeno combo can go away, but that's a discussion for another video. King Vegeta Surprise Attack, really good in green oriented decks. It's actually pretty hard to play a Vegito strategy in something that plays green, because oftentimes you want to swing Vegito at battle cards to clear them and then basically, you know, set up a brick wall against your opponent. But if your opponent's playing green strategy, typically you'll see this a lot in androids or maybe like blue green Soul Striker. Your opponent will have the King Vegeta Surprise Attack anytime you swing at one of their battle cards. So something to definitely look out for there. Again, revenge is a great answer to barrier. Double Impact Krillin. I really like the fact that this card got released in the World Tournament pack. And what it does is when you summon it, you can pop a 2-drop or less ignoring barrier. Well, this is really cool because it honestly just straight up answers Brienne and like kind of the Brienne package. Not like hard counters or anything like that, but it's a good answer to it to hinder their evolve plays. So it's really good. It kind of just deals with any little threat that could get your opponent a lot of value over the course of the game. So I'm glad that it's a card. Iron Hammer Justice, we talked about it. Revenge Blocker is really good. Twin Onslaught SS4 Goku. So this is a new card coming out of set 5, one of the new SRs. We'll read what it does. 5-drop green, Double Strike Deflect, Auto Burst 5, so mill 5 cards. When you play this card, if your leader is a green Shenron. So this card on top of the new 2-drop Trunks coming out of set 5 are basically some of the only saving graces of the actual green Wish Leader, which in my opinion isn't super duper good. But this card, if you're going to play that deck, this card is the reason to play it. So when you play this card, if your leader is a green Shenron card, choose all of your opponent's battle cards and KO them. That's insane. So basically kills anything that doesn't have barrier. If there are still battle cards remaining in your opponent's battle area, choose all of them ignoring barrier. Negate their skills for duration of the turn. This card gains dual attack for duration of the turn. So the crazy thing you can do in like that wish deck is you can, let's say, world peace this out, do something crazy, remove all your opponent's pieces, negate all their barrier stuff, and then if you still have your energy to play with, you can play something that has removal and actually remove a barrier card, which is really insane. And the other cool thing too, once again, like combo kill on Elaza, if you're trying to push for game or trying to push through some damage, and Elaza's effect will be negated, so that won't really be an issue to you. Also will negate something like Vegito, so you can actually go straight in for the leader, and a 25k dual attack double strike, nothing to laugh at. Fun fact, I think because it says Twin Onslaught SS4 Son Goku, I think that there will be a 5-drop green SS4 Vegeta in the next set, maybe, hopefully. That'd be kind of cool. Some type of similar effect. We'll see what it does. Maybe it'll give that Wish Leader a little bit more playability. Now we move over to the red cards. So we'll start with the Mega Focus Son Goku. A lot of the red cards you'll see here thematically are going to be able to attack active battle modes. So activate main once per turn, burst 3, so mill 3, gets any of your sparking decks a little bit quicker going on their game plan. For duration of the turn, this card gets 5k power and can attack battle cards in active mode. So it's a really cheap way to remove some small active threats you need to get rid of that have barrier. Impeccable Super Saiyan Kaba. This card can attack battle cards in active mode. Opponent cannot even negate the swing. So this will guarantee go to combos against any barrier battle card you want to swing at in active mode. And if your leader's a Red Saiyan, you get the added perk of it getting a 5k bump. Really good. Then we have the Champion Pack, Glory Obsessed, Prince of Destruction Vegeta. This is a mini Jiren, so if your leader's red, it can attack battle cards in active mode. I'm glad they kind of put this restriction on it so that, you know, an undercosted Jiren wouldn't just be splashable in any deck. I'm glad they kind of incentivize you to play a red leader. I think they need to do that more in this game, incentivize us to play different color leaders. But maybe that'll happen in set 5. Maybe people will see the reasons to play other leaders. I think there's a lot of good reasons to play different color leaders. So there's that card. Virtue Strength Son Gohan. Again, your leader has to be ready to attack active battle modes, and when this one attacks an active battle mode and KOs it, inflict 1 damage to your opponent. So these cards allow you to interact with these barrier cards. Yamcha at 100%. So this doesn't inherently deal with any barrier cards on its own, but you really aren't going to be playing this outside of something like Yamcha. You might play it in Pan, but realistically it's best in Yamcha, where you can give it the ability to attack active battle modes. So if your leader cards are Red Earthling, it gains 6k power, can't be negated, so it's almost like that Impeccable Super Saiyan Kappa, and then it deals 2 damage when it KOs an opponent's battle card. So you let it swing in active battles, you attack a battle card for a 25k, your opponent can't negate it, and then you could potentially deal 2 damage. It might be fatal. Really good for dealing with barrier. Jiren Fist of Justice, once again, a overcosted Prince of Destruction Vegeta, can attack active battle modes, go to 30k on the swing. Really good. Can swing at potentially 2 active battle modes because it does have the auto to give it dual attack basically. Terror Assault Frost. This is really solid at any barrier that's in rest mode, because this card, if this card has the window to swing at something, you know, assuming it doesn't get Cold Bloodlust or Crusher Balled, if this card swings at a battle card, that battle card is going to be KO'd, which is really good. So your opponent's rest mode Dragon Fist, your opponent's Vegetos, this thing just says KO, which is really good. Chain Attack Trunks, we talked about with Zeno. Grandial Absorption Majin Buu, this card can attack active battle modes when you copy a Gohan underneath it. So this card can punch barriers in active mode in the face, and it has 30k power, so it's really good at doing that. And can potentially deal burn damage depending on which Gohan you put underneath it. Crusher Ball. This is a very indirect answer to barrier cards, because basically when your opponent plays a barrier card, you can let it come in rest mode, and then you have the opportunity to swing at it next turn, which is pretty helpful. So that's why I added Crusher Ball in this list. Cold Bloodlust. So this can negate the skills of almost any barrier card that comes down, assuming it does not have Deflect, which is relatively decent. It's not necessarily an out to that barrier card, but it does allow you to somewhat interact with it on a turn you need to. So if it's a barrier that basically comes into play and does something, you get to actually negate that skill and then hopefully try and deal with it later. But Cold Bloodlust can interact with barrier cards, so I wanted to include it. Then we have Time Magic. So Time Magic is a new negate coming out of set 5. It's pretty underlooked, but I think it's actually particularly good. So if your leader card's yellow, negate the attack, then choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards in rest mode, ignoring barrier. Cannot switch to active mode until the start of your next turn. So it ignores barrier, so it does interact with barrier cards. And what it does is it can stop the same thing from swinging multiple times. So if like your opponent's Shenron leader gave some type of barrier card triple attack, for example, Time Magic can stop that. So you can, even though it has barrier, you can choose it, you can tap it down permanently. So on the first swing, they basically lost their triple attack, which is pretty big. So it's kind of an indirect way to deal with barrier as well. Frieza Back from Hell. So this card allows you to activate main, choose one of your opponent's battle cards in rest mode, ignoring barrier, can't switch to active mode till the start of your next turn. So I'm really a big fan of tap down effects. If you guys have seen my really old profile, I played Kid Goku back in the day, and this card's really cool because it can perma tap down things, you know, permanently tap them down, and that's almost as good as removal in certain instances, especially if your ability to tap something down sticks around on the board. So big fan of that card for doing that. King Gold, Father of the Emperor. So this is a counter battle card attack, and when you play this card, you get to rest one of your opponent's battle cards. That's kind of cool. But when you counter with this card, the attack target becomes the King Cold, and this card has revenge. So when this card is attacked, KO the attacking card after the battle. So anything that is forced to attack this gets KO'd. Really good at dealing a barrier. Again, kind of hard to leave up the 4 energy for it, but you do what you have to do when you have to deal with a certain threat. Savage Shisumi. This is one of my favorite cards, honestly, to come out of this set because, again, I love that tap down effect, and this card is just so good. So double strike, sparking 5. When you have 5 or more cards in your drop area and you play this card, if your leader freezes army, shoot up 2 of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, and switch them to rest mode. So it allows you to basically put barrier cards in a vulnerable position. So like if this thing puts down an Elaza, it basically can tap it down and it can attack it and threaten it on its own, which is pretty cool. Cold Heart Strike Frieza. When you play this card, you may place 1 U7 from your hand in the drop area. If you do so, shoot up to 2 of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier. If I do recall correctly, this might have been the first card that ignored barrier, which is pretty legit. Oh, actually, it probably was Dragon Fist and then this card. I don't remember which one came out first. But anyways, so ignoring barrier, switching to rest mode, they cannot switch to active mode during the next charge phase. So again, really good. And finally, the final card that I came up with on the list, Golden Frieza, the Resurrected Terror. So this card is going to see a little bit of play in the new Sorbet decks, which is pretty cool. The effect is when a card evolves into this card, place all rest mode battle cards except for this card in the drop area. That effect does not choose. So let's say you Crusher Ball something your opponent's turn, like I explained before, or if your opponent attacked with a barrier card, just like a Vegito or something, this can send those to the drop area. It does not choose. The weird thing is that the second part of the effect chooses, but that this is like a set 1 card, so we can give Bandai a benefit of the doubt when they were trying to figure out their linguistics and whatnot. Then choose all active battle mode cards and switch them to rest mode, except this card. So another way to deal with barrier cards. So guys, that's the list for all the cards that I was able to come up with that deal with barrier in the game currently. At the moment, there is somewhat of an extensive amount. There's 6, 12, 18, 24, 20, 32 looks like I think I have here. So 32 different cards that deal with barrier, I believe, on this list, if my math is right. Let me know if I miss anything, guys. Let me know if there's anything down in the comments below that you guys personally play to deal with barrier. I'd love to know what you guys do to deal with barrier, and if I miss anything, just please let me know. And like I said before, if you haven't hit the subscribe button, please do that. Please like this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Joey. This is Crossroad TCG, and I'll see you next time.